Haley Show, and my guest today is wearing a different hat. We all know him as the Emmy Award winning creator and showrunner of Bones, but he has a book out and we're going to talk about it, The Seminarian. How are you, Hart? Hart Hanson, welcome to the show. And as we were talking in the green room, isn't it true the process of something like a book is so much different than what you've done in your career?
Shockingly different, Neil. Very much different. There's pros and cons, but when you're writing a TV show, you have the help of approximately 120 people who are all incredibly good at their jobs. They've risen to the top. And when you're writing a book, you are all by yourself. It was when I wrote my first book, it was just shocking that I had to think of wardrobe. I didn't have someone to advise me on what my characters were wearing, and just every detail. So yeah, it was a big shock switching from one to the other. Kind of delightful. Yeah, the good side is when you're working in a TV show, or if you're a showrunner like I was, there's about 100 people shouting at you all the time. It gets very, very noisy. Whereas it's nice and quiet in my writing room.
How do you have time to write with your busy
Oh
schedule?
well, I write like a job. One good thing about working in television for so many years is you go to work. So I do that even when I'm working my own house. When Bones ended, I had to decide whether to pitch another TV show, or try writing books. So I went to writing books. So I had increasingly more time to write books. I'm still developing television shows, but that is different from running a TV show. Running a TV show is 80 hours a week, easy. When you're developing, it's a whole different kettle of fish. So
Wow.
you make your time. You make your time. I have no trouble putting my rear end into a chair and starting to think.
Think about this, Hart. It's the situation is a lot of people, and I think this is a therapeutic part of it. Is you finished up your run with Bones and said, okay, I'm going to make being an author a full-time job, and it's not going to pay me what television pays me, but I'm going to do this because it's a passion of mine. And you put the time in to say, okay, I'm going to treat it as structured as I was as a showrunner writing a book. It sounds like what you did.
Yes, that's it. You get, I think it's fair to say, you get addicted to writing.
Yes.
It's it's always been kind of pleasant for me to sit and work on writing. Pleasant's not the right word. Engrossing. It's it uses up a lot of my energy and brain, and I like that. Sometimes it's painful, but it's always I find it rewarding to have written. So I'll sit down and do the writing so I can say I have written.
I have clients that literally, already ready to write four more books in their head. And I just
Yeah.
try to think about it because I know it's not their money generating income. What makes writing so much enjoyment? What do you think, Hard?
Well, I guess it's like anything else you get addicted to. You go to another place, you have a measure of control. If you like your characters and are intrigued by them, then they are pretty good company. I will say that it has some of the effects, the deleterious effects of other addictions, in that you come back to the real world and you're a little bit fuzzy and a little bit absent-minded and all that stuff. But all in all, it's very surprising that still surprises me after all these years that you'll sit down and work and you look up and it's lunchtime and it's been 4 hours and it's gone by very quickly. And so it's an altered state of consciousness, I guess, that we all kind of enjoy, like dreaming.
Well, so it's interesting with my agency and also doing so many podcasts. I'm a national syndicated radio host, but also podcaster, all adding all that to can better 5 hours of programming a week, but it's all independent. So I'm recording all the time and live streaming all the time, or I'm having coaching calls, or I'm working with my clients, or I'm on a potential working with a specific client. The day goes so fast and I'm like, where did the hours go? But I am in like an altered state of consciousness. Once I get down to
Yeah.
my studio, it's like game on. Okay, I'm interviewing you now. I have a client call this time. I'm interviewing someone else, so and so this time, and just keep going and going, and it keeps you structured. And if it's something that doesn't feel like work, it's worth it.
Yes. Well said. I don't know how you do all that. I'm a little more tired after hearing you say we were scheduled than I was before. Holy crap, that sounds like just very difficult to me. That's a lot of interaction with human beings. Good for you.
Well, and it goes back to my days when I was a tutor. I did the same thing. Oh,
Oh,
go figure. I get extra time with Hart Hanson. Let's go to your book now, The Seminarian. Is this your first novel you've written?
this is my second crime book that I've written. I worked in TV for so long, and as I say, I wrote a book called The Driver in 2017, and this is my second book. It's in the same universe. If people enjoyed The Driver, they might see a character or two that they recognize, seen from a different point of view. But it's my second book.
All right, and just kind of going. So you was that a New York Times best selling book, or you got?
It was
Uh,
the list. I don't think it was a bestseller. It did make the list of the New York Times 2017 best crime novels of the year, which I was absolutely delighted by. But I don't think it burned up and down the bestseller list.
well, maybe The Seminarian will. You never know.
Oh,
That's
here's
why.
hoping.
Yeah, and so crime novels people love, right? And this is the problem with interviewing an author. And a lot of people who interview authors ask too many questions about the book. I believe for authors to be successful, their readers have to really love the person as well. Love who
Ah,
they are, love their creativity, love their interaction with their fans versus, oh, I'm just going to give away the whole book. Because if you give away the whole book or a
oh,
portion of it, people aren't going to buy it.
yep, yep. I think you're true. I think it's sometimes it's the universe. You hope that readers respond to your voice and your universe, the way you write. Lots of times I get critics say things that are they say, oh, quirky or unusual. If you want something different from the typical crime novel, then I'm your guy. And I turn to my wife and say, oh, well, this is disturbing because I'm doing my best to write a straight down the middle crime novel, and apparently I'm a odd or slightly different. But what can you do? Your voice is your voice, and over the course of a novel, if you're trying to write in a voice that is unnatural for you, then you're doomed, I think. It is what it is. There's a lot of my brain comes out in a book. So I hope now you've made me nervous. I hope people like my brain.
Well,
I hope
I
they
like
like.
I enjoy your brain and you're entertaining and you're not in that. You might be go ahead and be an introvert, but you're one that had to be on a set forever, so you know how to interact with people when you go into those book signings and all that. So let's talk about The Seminarian. You said it's a crime novel, and when you first hear the title of the book, you kind of start to think about, the seminarian. What is this about?
Yeah, yeah. I maybe it should have been called The Former Seminarian because it's about a guy who a seminary is where you go to study for the priesthood. So my protagonist, who is now a legal investigator, left the seminary to have a more profane. He moved from the sacred to the profane. He became a legal investigator in Venice Beach, California. It's about he's dodging a contract killer that he doesn't know what the deal is there, and he's looking for a missing sex worker, and all at the same time a 12-year-old boy shows up saying, hey, I think you're my dad. So he's got his hands full.
Well, it sounds like he has his hands full in so many ways. And so, what gave you the premise for this novel?
Well, there's a couple things. I live in Venice Beach. I live right there, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a surreal and crazy place. It's mythic, and there's a reason that it's
I
mythic.
think my buddy Chris Mulkey lives in Venice Beach. He always
Oh
talks
my
about
God.
stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, and like you do things that you don't realize. My family makes fun of me because one of the most common things I do is say, "What the hell is going on there?" And I'm indicating a group of people, and I'm going, "Why are those people together? What what has brought those people to be talking to each other?" And then I made a list of protagonists that interest me. I think it all starts with the character of who your character is before you put him or her into a pickle. You want to know who they are. So I'd written down a number of things that I wanted in a character, and slowly honed in on a former seminarian who's having a hard time, figuring out how to fit in to the world. And he's not always good at it. Not to mention, how the hell is he going to deal with a son that if you do the math, then that boy was conceived when he was in the seminary. So these things just come together, and then you figure out what kind of case is going to give him the most to ruminate on and think about and come up against, that will the friction will be entertaining. And so that was, his best friend comes to him. His best friend has fallen in love with an escort, and the escort's gone missing. So he thinks a lot about all of that, but he agrees to look for the escort. And meanwhile, someone's trying to kill him, and we don't know if there's a connection or not.
Oh my goodness. That definitely he should have stayed in the seminary, it sounds like. But people have to read the book to find out. Because a lot of times just no common sense. Go figure how you created this in a crime novel. And for when you were involved with Bones, were you also the writer of Bones?
Yes, I created and wrote, head writer on Bones. It went for a very long time. It was Fox's longest running scripted hour. Still is. Nothing, and the way the industry is now, it'll probably hold that record in perpetuity.
Wow, I have not watched the series. I'm gonna go back and watch the series. It's, I guess, next on my list. Because again, now I know the creator. That's the cool thing
No,
about getting to interview people. And I'm sure you still make residual off of everyone watching watching it on streaming and all that stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. You know what? Network TV in its day, which Bones was, went off the air in 2017. It was lucrative. It's much tougher now. My heart goes out. It's not fair. It's not fair to TV writers now, as opposed to when I was, making Bones. So yeah, it's extremely lucrative. Bones sold in every market in the world. It's still really popular in streaming. It's just one of those well liked, fairly funny procedurals that people can watch. I'm really super fond of it.
Was that your big break? Was Bones? Or
Certainly Bones was my, I created a show in Canada before I came down, but Bones was my creation. I worked on a few other TV shows before I created Bones. I worked on a show called Judging Amy and another one called Joan of Arcadia. I worked on a Cupid. Those were all fun. Those were all, those are good, solid, well-paying 22 to 24 episodes a year network shows. And then I created Bones, and that was, yes, that was the brass ring, is to create your own show on a network at that
yeah.
time. So I'm still knocking on wood and thanking my lucky stars.
So you're saying that the deals are just not lucrative anymore in television and streaming.
There's been we could talk about this for hours. There's been quite a contraction in the industry as streamers are less profitable for everybody than the networks were back in their day, when there was just 4 networks and a few cable stations. There's just been a contraction in the industry There's very few shows now that go 22 to 24 episodes a year, which that's a good chunk of your year that you're working instead of 6 or 10 episodes. And then the number of years that things last is if you're lucky, it'll go for 3 years. There's still a few of those network shows that are, the NCIS franchise is extremely, and NCIS and all, the CSI and Law and Order franchises are the last standards. But yeah, it's tougher now. I talked to tons of young writers, and it's tougher. It's tougher to make a living now as a TV writer than it was even back in my day. Even back in my day, it was terribly competitive, but there were more jobs.
Interesting.
It's just
Uh,
dependent swings.
well, that's why you're in the book game, which I'm sure, again, is a challenging ocean as well. Where can people? So your book is going to be released in a couple days, right? When is it released?
May 21st, book will be released. Yeah.
Okay, and they can pick it up. Can they pre-order it now?
Oh, that would be delightful if people pre-ordered. It's so good for writers when people pre-order. It really bolsters the meaning of sales. So yes, pre-order at any of the places you get your books or at your local bookshop.
All right, so go to the Seminarian. Go look up Seminarian. Look up Hart Hanson. You're going to find it and purchase that, and purchase his last book too. And check out the other crime novel. Appreciate it, Hart. Best of luck, man. Great chatting with you, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Neil. Delightful. Thank
All
you.
right, see ya. You're welcome. You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show. We'll be back in just a moment.